I think the word mistakes is relative. Yeah, I don't know what a mistake is for Pridmore, but a mistake, sometimes even running a little bit, just a little bit wide for me, I consider it a mistake. But for others, a mistake is crashing.
That's M4 Ecstar Suzuki Sean Dillon Kelly, our guest on this one. Well, welcome everyone to the Greg's Garage Pod with co-host Jason Pridmore. I'm Greg White, and the other guy in the name of the podcast is Jason Pridmore. Hey, JP, what's going on?
What's up, G-Dub? So you're throwing me under the bus with SDK right off the bat, talking about how I don't know, I never see him making mistakes. I like that. That's okay.
What? How did you? What? How did
it's
you?
It's a good thing. Guess? No, that's good. I like it.
I was gonna leave it as a surprise for the end, but I just couldn't resist having him say your name in the tease. I mean, it was just.
I guess it's not really. I guess it's. I don't know. I mean, when I talk about mistakes, it's definitely not crashing. It's the kid always just seems to have poise. Just to me, when I watch him ride, and I think about how young he is and how far ahead of the game he is at 17 than what most 17-year-old kids are in his racing IQ. Even at Road America this past weekend, the things that I noticed with him, with just not losing touch with the leaders, like even though he fell back a little bit, he kind of found a way to put himself in there still at the end.
Hey, listen, guy, you're going to have a lot of time to explain stuff with SDK.
I know.
We got a lot of stuff in there, all right? So look, this is our MotoAmerica warm-up podcast, and this weekend is round 5 of the 2019 championship, which is our halfway point. And coming up, we're going to visit Utah Motorsports Campus in Tooele, just outside of Salt Lake City. And we just came off of Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. But for UMC, we are racing a different configuration track. Jay, you want to tell us about that a little bit?
Well, we're going to be racing the east side of Utah Motorsports Campus, I believe. So you're going to use the last corner as we would normally see it, and then just past start-finish line, you're going to hook a left, and where it joins back in over at the Attitudes, just going to be a new little section for quite a few of the riders. There's a race there this weekend, and so I'm not sure how many of them went to that to go check out the track. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, that's kind of well, there's certain limitations, right? I guess you can't test, but you could do track. You could do like a race or.
Well, I think if you were racing, you can be there, I believe. It's always, we have this discussion all the time, and really we just gotta. It seems like the rule changes a little bit from year to year. I know if there's an event there within 30 days, you're clear to ride because we're at Sonoma, and there'll be some guys up there that'll be riding prior, like this next week. So before we go to Utah, there's a bunch of people going to Sonoma. But that race isn't until August, so I guess you're kind of clear to ride whatever you want. But I think on a race weekend where people can actually go make contingency money or something like that, I think they're allowed to go ride. I believe if it's a race, if it's a competition. So not really sure. Don't want to get anybody in trouble.
Yeah, don't want to get anyone in trouble.
Yeah. But I mean, if you can go there and you can see the track, it definitely will help you a little bit. But we're running a condensed version of that circuit, and I think for a lot of us, turns 1, 2, 3 of the perimeter course are so fun. They're very European feeling, but I think what MotoAmerica is trying to do is keep it a little bit more condensed. Maybe we have a 2-day schedule, so the track's going to be a little bit smaller than what we're used to. It should make for good racing, close racing. I think it's going to make for very close racing, but we've just eliminated that big long straightaway. I think in our telecast for Road America, we were talking about Road America's front straightaway being the longest that we currently use. And the only one I think that would have rivaled it is probably Utah, but we're not using that anymore. So Road
and
America,
also at altitude too, you're going to see less of a gap of bikes that are faster than other bikes. That's the one thing. There's a couple things that are interesting about that altitude when we get to Utah. So it's going to be a cut in horsepower. I can't remember. I want to say it's about 15%, 12 to 15%. And the other thing is, depending on the weather in Utah, bikes can run hotter because you don't have as
Correct.
much oxygen up at that level. So there's a couple things to look out for in that as well. And I've seen riders have to roll out of it because their bike's running really hot, or motors blown up, but mechanics have to pay close attention to all that stuff.
I haven't really even looked at the weather for that far out yet for Utah, and I just decided I'm driving there. So I'm gonna go up to Sonoma and do a little riding up there, and then just go from there over to go see Dr. Ting, have him look at my leg, and I'm just gonna drive to Utah. Figured it's only 10 hours, so just it's not a horrendous drive, but just do that and then bang out those 2 days. I think it'll be interesting racing because the passing, I think it's going to be a track where there's going to be a lot of aggression. And I feel like the new sector of the track will open up a couple of spots. I actually ran a school on this version. Did you ever ride there with me at this place?
So if you're looking at the track, is it the one that's on the left side or the right side?
Yeah, so you're going to use the attitudes, and then you're going to come back to start finish line the way you always would, Greg. The left, right, left, and then back to the front straightaway. But then after you go across start finish line, you turn left.
I've only ridden the perimeter track and then the track on the right side, which was the first time I ever rode that track. It was a Honda press day, and it was snowing out. Actually, it was snowing, and we got to ride Jake Zemke and Miguel Duhamel's Formula Extreme bikes, the Hondas, the 600s back in the day. Yeah, and we went there for a little press thing for TV. That was the first time I got to visit that place, and that was just that part of the track. Other than that, like with Weira in 2007, and the other times that I've been on the track, I believe have all been the perimeter track.
Yep.
So I haven't exclusively. So you go down the front straight and then you're just going to bang a left.
You hook a left almost not right after start finish line, but pretty much right after start finish line. I only did that. I did this track once. I did a school there and ran this side of the east side. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It's got a big long left that takes you up to the attitudes. It actually will be interesting to see if the attitudes themselves, if you enter them faster this way. I can't remember, but I think that you almost enter them faster, but they're quite a bit different because instead of going through that big long right-hander, I think they call it witchcraft in the middle of the track there, and it gets kind of dirty with the direction we normally go. I feel like this way it might be a little bit faster coming into this, so we'll see.
Well, it should be fresh anyway, you know. Looking forward to seeing the changes. The track's been sold. Everything's been settled. So we'll see how it goes. And like you were saying, it's just a 2-day event. But to MotoAmerica's credit also, Jay, after the very first 2-day event we had at VIR, there's been some changes in the schedule after going out and getting like kind of a impromptu survey. Like, what did you guys think? And what do we need to change? So there's going to be a few changes in the schedule to ease up some things for the teams and the riders. So all that's really good.
Yeah, that's right. Because we went to VIR, did our first 2-day, and we were pretty lucky with the weather. I think coming out west, hopefully it'll be the same where we won't have any of those issues. But, Utah has generally been a place that it's a rider's favorite, but it's hard to get some people out there. And I mean, they tried to run World Superbike back there in the past. So maybe a little bit of condensed version will help. It'll help speed the schedule up too, Greg. It won't take guys as long to get on and off the racetrack and so on and so forth. But, we were in MotoAmerica last week and, we saw a big shakeup in the points. The second race DNF from Toni Elias definitely opened it back up. And you and I talk about this all the time, whether we're on air or off. We talk about how sometimes those first 3 rounds look like they're going to be trending a certain direction. And all of a sudden we go to Road America and things seem to change. The racing is always close there. Moving now into Utah, we've got Toni with a 9-point lead over Cameron Beaubier, our defending champion. And I think that when you look at what we saw, Greg, at Road America and COTA, and you look at the next 3 rounds on the schedule, none of them have this kind of big, long straightaway effect that we've seen in Atlanta, at COTA, at VIR, and even here at Road America. VIR obviously isn't quite as fast, but when we go to Utah, there really won't be a straightaway to speak of. And so I almost feel like Cameron getting those 2 second-place finishes, getting himself 9 points out of the lead, I feel like he's got some momentum going into this weekend in Utah. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think maybe that this different track configuration plays into Cam's hands because you don't have that long straightaway.
Correct.
And you can kind of see that, Obviously, they're losing something even with the reduction in horsepower. And I'm looking at the track map now.
Yep.
And looking at this road course. So you come out of that final corner, you go cross start finish line basically, and it's like wham, you're right into what they call East 1, into fast, faster. Gotcha. Like sections that we haven't ridden before. There's a few corners there. And it looks like it's 2.2 miles. So lap time should be a lot quicker.
Yep.
In this one.
I think they're around the minute 30s,
more...
32s, 31s. I think I remember some friends racing there last year, but I think that's about where it's at, Greg.
So what'll be interesting is the flow versus the work. So one of the things we know about Yamaha and the R1 and Cam's bike is the transitions back and forth. And it's not, other than like you're saying, Jay, that those attitudes, first attitude, second, and then bad attitude, the transitions there, the rest of them, of the corners that I know of, aren't massive transitions. I mean, you come out of that clubhouse corner and then into wind up, and that's a bit of a flick, So that's the thing. If Cameron feels comfortable right out of the box and they don't have a lot of work to do, and Suzuki ends up kind of chasing things around, that's when we could see a change of fortune. And at this point, too, Cameron Beaubier really needs Garrett Gerloff. He needs Garrett Gerloff to be there in the mix and try to put himself in between Toni. I know it's early in the season, team orders, all that kind of stuff, and I know all Garrett wants to do is win, and all that's great. But I think for Cameron and the way Tony's riding right now, Jay, is it's going to be a team effort if he's going to win this championship. Just my guess anyway.
Yeah, I think that we're getting into some places where historically, when you start looking at even Infineon or Sonoma, 3 races from now, that's a place where Cameron has done some damage up there. And I think that you hit the nail on the head is we don't have this big, long front straightaway that he's going to have to deal with that deficit. And I think it's going to bring Garrett closer. Garrett, to me, at Road America, rode really, really well. He lost touch there at the end of the first race, lost a little bit of touch. But I think overall his demeanor on the podium was one of, when you reflect back, he looked very excited about it, and he ran the pace with those guys, kind of kept him honest the both days. I just feel that this could be a race where you could see that 4, 5, 6 battle that we thought would maybe materialize at Road America. JD is going to be up there. I think Matthew will be up there. Jake Lewis, let's hope that I know that they sorted out his problems. I saw him testing at Road America the Monday after, because the track's going to be more like a little bull ring. So it's going to be more like a Sonoma, for it's going to be difficult to pass. It's going to be, we could definitely see some fireworks.
So for this EBC Break Superbike class, looking forward to Utah. We got a couple additions into it. Jeremy Coffey, who's on Superbike Underground coming from Vancouver. Jason Uribe is back. He's going to be on a CBR 1000 RR. That'll be very interesting to see how he gets along there. I think if you're going to bring a CBR 1000 out to the racetrack with the configuration we're running in Utah, it's not a bad idea for this place, right? I mean,
and he's been going very fast out here in AFM, Greg. He's been very fast. I've been keeping a little bit of an eye on that, and the times that he ran at Buttonwillow to win the Formula Pacific race at the last round of AFM at Buttonwillow, he was very fast. So, we haven't got to see that many Hondas up there. He has obviously a privately sponsored Honda that he's running, and this could be a better track for him there for sure. And I would assume that we're probably going to see him at Laguna and Sonoma as well.
I hope so. I know Matthew Orange returns to some racing. I haven't seen Matthew in a while. Remember back in 2000, I think it was 16, he ran the full series. I thought Matthew was on a BMW back then. He was on a Yamaha. Yeah,
yep, he was. Is he on a Yamaha now?
He is. At least it's listed on the entry form. Yep. So that'll be good to see. Brad Morris from Denver, Colorado is on a Yamaha as well.
Brad's been to a couple of the rounds in the past, also. So seen him before as well. So it'll be nice to have a few more guys on that grid. I think that we're coming west now. So, we go to a couple tracks on the East Coast where we see a few more bikes and riders there. I think Road America has a tendency to keep the privateers almost away a little bit, even though they love the racetrack. They realize kind of what they're up against with some of the horsepower and things that they got to go against. So, yeah, we're seeing a few more guys. So
But I'll be curious to find out. So you have a couple situations. One of them is like, say, with Kyle Wyman. Another one is going to be with Matthew Skultz, with new electronics, with Jake Lewis, that M4 Ecstar Suzuki team. With the new electronics, they've got to map the track like that first session. You've got to get good data, GPS, GPS data and all that. But everybody's kind of in the same boat this weekend. I mean, you have some data from a certain part of the track, but really everyone goes there with having to remap the track and start to deal with whatever, you have. And I have to think that you have, as a race team, more flexibility in how you're going to gear the motorcycle because you don't have that long straightaway to contend with. And what I mean by that, Jay, as you know, is that it's really important that you have enough gear to get into a draft all the way down that long straightaway. You take that out, and now all of a sudden you have different options in terms of sprocket combinations that you can play with gearing wise. So this one, even though, yes, we're going back to Utah Motorsports Campus, in my eyes, that first session, I'm going to take a really close look at see who's working hard and who's not in the EBC Brake Superbike class because of that factor. It's the same location, but it might be all new for everyone.
Yep.
So
yeah, there's no question. And I don't know exactly how many guys. I got to think that Kyle Wyman's ridden this course obviously a few times, as has Uribe. I would believe. I'm just looking through the list here. I just don't know how many guys have got the chance to go out and really ride this part, but they're gonna have to get used to 6 corners. Essentially, Greg, is what it boils down to, 6 or 7 corners, because it's where they join back in at the attitudes. All that's going to be the same. So, and I'm sure you looking at the track design right now, you can understand what I'm saying when it's gonna be kind of scrappy. So when you look back and you look at the points and you see Garrett there in 3rd and I think JD's 4th and so on. It's when you look at that, these are the kind of races where you've got to put yourself in that shop window to be up front, because anything could happen with those 2 guys leading and the championship could be blown wide open again. So, the next 3 rounds I think are going to be pretty pivotal in our championship as before we head back east again. And I think Utah is going to offer up some fireworks. So, and like you said, it's good to see a few more people on the grid.
Mm-hmm. So we're looking forward to the EBC Brake Superbike class. How about, do you want to talk about some Supersport?
Love it. Let's do it.
All right.
Yep.
So in the Supersport class, just to kind of give you an idea, it was Hayden Gillum who won race number 1 and Bobby Fong won race number 2 at Road America. And then you had at race 1, it was Bobby Fong and Sean Dillon Kelly, teammates, going 2-3. And then it was just Bobby Fong and Sean Dillon Kelly, who's a rookie, finishing 1-2 with Hayden Gillum in 3rd. The way the track looks, Jason, this could be 4, 5 riders, because again, if you have a bike that's a little bit down on horsepower, it's not as big of a, it's not as noticeable up in Utah as it would be at sea level at some other tracks. So it becomes a bit of an equalizer. It depends on setup. Setup's critical, but you know what I mean? Like PJ Jacobsen seems down a smidge on horsepower compared to, Hayden Gillum on the same bike a little bit, which is weird to say because PJ is a much smaller guy. But that's the way it looks sometimes, unless Hayden's just dialed.
When you look at it, though, Greg, it's almost like we can have the same conversation here about 600s that we just had in Superbike. Because when we go to the first 2 or 3 rounds, it looked like Hayden's bike was down quite a bit to everything else. I mean, you remember PJ running away with the victory at VIR and showing some pace against Bobby Fong in race 2 at Atlanta. But if you remember, PJ couldn't even draft Bobby. I feel that Hayden Gillum's got to be really, really happy to be leading the points with his year so far, going into this little stretch of tracks that, again, are going to be the ones that are kind of like going to show a lot of aggression. I think that it's going to bring a few of the Yamahas back into play because the Suzukis have shown to have some real pace down the straightaways. And it goes back to what we said. There is no long straightaway at Utah anymore. There is no big advantage to drafting and redrafting. In fact, literally the next 3 rounds, there really isn't any kind of drafting going to be going on. The only class that will be doing any drafting will be the LiquiMoly bikes. So when you look at it, I think Hayden Gillum leading the points going into this, I think he's going to feel like these next 3 rounds are going to be very pivotal to him to try to get some good points in the bank before they head back east. And, as a rider, my thought process would be during the summer when it's hot, we go to these 3 kind of tracks that are all the same, very scrappy. Let's put as many points in the bank as we can, and then we can really look at how we're going to go through Pittsburgh, Jersey, and Barber. So, we've got a points gap of what, Greg? 21 points is separating our top 5 with Gillum, Fong, Escalante, Sean Dillon, Kelly there in 4th, and PJ in 5th. I just feel like the Suzukis now aren't going to have as much of an advantage on some of those big straights. So you're right. I think that guys like Escalante and Gillum are licking their chops. And PJ, maybe.
Let's talk about teams real quick. So you have the M4 Ecstar Suzuki team. They have 2 riders. You have Ridiculous Racing, which also has 2 riders. Celtic, which is PJ by himself. Richie Escalante, Hudson Motorcycles by himself. Bryce Prince by himself. Josh Hayes, if he's going to race, right? So you look down there, Jay, and you're thinking, okay, right now, and it pains me to say this, but right now, Ridiculous Racing, with the way Nick McFadden's been racing so far this season, doesn't look like a team that can go race against another team. He just hasn't quite picked it up yet. He's been close to the front, but he's been drifting back. I mean, at Road America, he finishes 9th ultimately, and then that was, he was 9th, 8th in race 1, 9th in race 2. So also, if it's a team game, which occasionally it can be, as you know from experience. I mean, I remember a race one time when you were leading and a little off the throttle, and let the team win. I'm not going to really point fingers on that guy, but when I look at that and I say to myself, wow, even though Hayden Gillum is in the position that he's in, and even though I think these scrappy tracks really, kind of are in his favor a bit because it reduces the deficit, like you're talking about, the top speeds or the acceleration off the corner to top speed of the Suzuki. As a team, just like we saw in MotoGP, where you saw the Ducati team roughing up Marc Marquez, at this point of the season, I've kind of got to give the advantage to the M4 Ecstar Suzuki team because they have the ability to go the same pace, 2 of them, and they're doing the same thing. Yeah, Bobby wants to win. Yeah, Sean Dillon Kelly wants to win. I get it. But they also want to have their team 1-2 more than they want Hayden Gillum to finish anywhere else on the podium. You think I'm out of line on this one, or what?
I don't think you're out of line. I don't think generally in the past we've seen too much team type of tactics really get imposed in Supersport. Obviously, because when JD and Garrett were clearing off, they were racing against each other a lot of times. I think now we have a lot more parity in the championship because we got so many good teams. We got a lot of solid riders and teams in that top 10. But it's so close right now. You can't really play the point game too much. You're right about Nick. Nick was there in that first race running 6th and really hanging on with the leaders at Road America. And then he kind of fell back. I think that looking at what Nick had done the last couple of years, always being like 4th, 5th, 6th, just trying to get that podium. And it wasn't happening. And then he leaves the M4 team to come to the Ridiculous team. And the Suzukis have been tremendous this year. I think the guy coming in with a lot of momentum will be Bobby Fong. I think he had a really good race on Saturday at Road America, one that I think that he could have won. Just a couple things didn't really go his way on the last lap. He didn't particularly do anything wrong. And then on Sunday, for him to win the second race and for the team to get 1-2, that's really good for them. But, when it comes time to talk about championship, I think right now there's only 12 points separating Bobby and SDK. So they're probably not going to rough each other up too much, but it's going to be hard for them to play the point game too much because there's just too many people in contention right now. I think it's every man for themselves until we get down to those last, 2 or 3 rounds.
Now, so far this season, MotoAmerica rookie Sean Dillon Kelly has raced his M4 Ecstar Suzuki to 4 podiums in 6 tries. Now, he just turned 17 on May 17th, and he's already been exposed to great racing. He was kind enough to take some time with me so we could find out more about him. And if you have not heard of Sean Dillon Kelly, you're not alone. So first up, Jay, I asked him, who is SDK?
All right, so SDK, there you said it. Those are the main initials. My name's Sean Dillon Kelly. I'm 17 years old, born and raised in Miami with Argentinian parents. So I actually started racing all locally here when I was 6 years old. And I don't come from a family racing background. My parents did not race. It was just mostly all me, just born with something in my blood. And everything started since I was a little kid. So everything started local, just doing local races with super minis, just super motard mainly. Not like the typical American, I guess you could say, that starts with dirt or anything. But everything just started local until I was about 11 years old. I just started going up the ranks, I guess we could say, and getting into the bigger bikes, getting into CCS, all the bigger bike local stuff. And when I was 11 going to 12, we decided to make a little change. I wanted to actually run the MotoAmerica KTM Cup series, but I wasn't old enough for that as I was only 12. So my biggest step, I guess, in my career was having to race in Mexico in 2015. Because of my age, it was still the KTM Cup though. So I raced that year there. I won the championship in 2015. I went to the World Finals for the KTM Cup. Did pretty well there. I won my first ever international race and got second in the overall. And from there, I went to the Rookies Cup selection event at the end of 2015, got into the Rookies Cup and did 3 years in the Red Bull Rookies Cup. So that was my, I guess, main career set up to now. Before getting into Moto America, it was the biggest thing that could have happened to me having to get into the Rookies Cup, just because we also had to move to Spain to make this happen. So 2015, I got into the Rookies Cup. For 2016, we moved to Spain, to Barcelona. And after that, I got chosen for the 2017 season. And after that, I got chosen for the 2018 season. So the 3 last years have been a lot of work overseas. You know, it was a big change for me and for my parents to have to leave here and make it happen over there overseas. You know, we went through a lot, but at the end of the day, it was all worth it. You know, we learned so much. Definitely the best school I could have ever asked for, to be over there in such a series that, you know, a lot of world champions have come out of there. So definitely learned a lot, and still grateful for where I am right now. I know that taught me a lot, and I know that's gotten me to be who I am as of right now, not only as a rider, but as a person as well. And here we are now, Moto America, a few rounds in, and just extremely grateful for where we are right now.
Amazing to me, Jason, how much racing he's actually done, how much experience he has at such a young age, you know, and coming from a non-racing family, think about the sacrifice. I mean, at least you grew up with a mom and a dad who understood and embraced racing. So when you took off and went racing, they were like, all right, dude, see ya.
They knew what I was doing, didn't they? I mean, it's a big commitment, and even bigger commitment when you think that the whole family moves over for basically, you know, at the time, 14-year-old kid, 15-year-old kid that's going to go race overseas. You know, I'm sitting here and I'm listening to his answer, and I've probably got more questions myself now just listening to it, you know, because I had heard of Sean a couple times, but I never really get to see him ride, get to see him race. It's interesting to hear him say that he went to the World Finals in 2015 of the KTM 390 Cup, because I didn't really get him start really paying attention to that till 2016.
And Jason, so how understated was he? You know what I mean?
Very.
He was so understated, like, you know, and I won my first international race. He didn't, like, just the way he answered that question, I thought was great. But Jason, fair play. Listen,
but that's
honestly,
how he is.
Fair play. Okay.
Yeah.
You're a guy who's been in racing a long time. You're also a coach. I mean, how many names do you and I over the last 20 years hear about young racers coming up? My kid's the next Valentino Rossi. He's unbelievable, blah, 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 blah. It's difficult for us to pay attention to every single kid that's coming up through the ranks because, okay, I got it. I heard his name and I kind of saw his name from time to time, but, you know, it isn't until he's in front of us. And that's really the importance of getting your kid to Moto America, isn't it? Because now you're getting in front of the people that make the decisions on who to hire, who to ride, you know, who's going to be riding their bikes. You can't just sit in Wira going, oh, I broke a track record at Hallett, or I win in Wira. Now give me a Moto America ride. You've got to figure out how to come here, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think that there's a lot of questions that I have asked, because I sit there, Greg, and I have to say, and I'm going to ask, I'm putting you on the spot. All right.
Okay.
How many 17-year-olds have you seen come through our series in the last, say, 3 or 4 years?
More than that, actually. Like, you know what I mean? Like, go back a little bit further to Red Bull Rookies Cup when we had that. So, I mean, there's been a lot.
I can make an
right?
argument for Brandon Posh. Definitely. I can make an argument for him being 17, 18 and a total grinder, but he hasn't had the experience of Sean Dillon Kelly. So you could put those two guys kind of together. What I'm curious to know is that in the Red Bull Rookies, number one, I don't know what Sean's best finish is over there. But I can't imagine that there'd be too many kids from over there that would come over here and do the job that SDK has done in the short time he's been with us, from the 200 to the first 4 rounds or 3 rounds of Supersport here in America. I know that we live in a money-driven world, and I know Europe especially is all about, if you want the ride, you're gonna have to pay. And I'm not sure if that's what drove him back here. But obviously he's a tremendous talent, and he's the kind of kid that our series, I think when Wayne Rainey and Chuck Asklin and them got involved in making our series greater over here in America, I think that they looked at for guys that are 16, 17, 18 that can show that they can ride on the world stage.
Yeah.
And this kid fits that profile to me. I'm just curious of why was it a money thing that he came back for, equipment thing? Because that's what I hear a lot of from over there.
I think it's a combination of both, but I'm not going to answer that for him. That's something,
Yeah,
but
for sure. Something we can ask him and maybe get the answer for another podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. But Jay, kind of along those lines, I was like, okay, so you spend all this time, you're in Mexico, then you head on over to Europe, then Red Bull Rookies for all these years. So how exactly is it that you come back to the US Supersport racing in MotoAmerica?
So after 3 years in the Rookies Cup, at the end of last year, or already starting last year, 2018, I already knew that it was going to be my last year in the Rookies Cup. So we knew that there was going to have to be some sort of change in regard of my career, because we knew the Rookies Cup wasn't going to happen. And we knew that the rest was going to be a little bit difficult, just because I would have loved to stay in Europe, of course, but the opportunities just weren't there. If you don't have the sponsors and you don't have the money, it's very difficult to make it happen in Europe. So at the end of 2018, we were already having some little chats, and the main switch was when I came in October of 2018 to do the Daytona Race of Champions, which was actually with Team Hammer, the Team M4 Ecstar Suzuki, which I'm racing for now. And I actually jumped on Robertino Pietri's bike because he couldn't make it to that weekend. And he told me, hey, he's a great friend of mine. He's been supporting me for many years now. And he said, hey, I won't be able to make it, but I want you to jump on the bike. So jumped on the bike, my first real time racing a 600, and obviously my first time working with Team Hammer, and went really well. I won the race there in October. And I guess that was sort of the click for everyone. I know the Ulrich family were happy with how everything had been going. We had actually done a test just before that as well. And they just gave me the opportunity to run for the MotoAmerica for them for 2 years. And it was an obviously go-to. So like I said, here we are now.
The Ulrich family.
Kind of answered my own question though. When he talks about didn't have the sponsorship, that's money. So if you don't have the money, so it really doesn't matter if you're a top level guy over, and the same can be said here too. Right now, we live in a world where money is what's going to drive it. And if you're a kid that doesn't necessarily have that or have a big money sponsor behind you, but to me, this goes to show again, putting in the time, putting in the grind of it all. And it takes people like Robertino who, has worked or has known Sean for a long time. And then you make those connections with the Ulrich family. And I remember the first time I talked to Chris about SDK, it was the intelligence was there, the level of focus and knowledge and things like that, the way he spoke. If you talk to this kid, he doesn't sound like he's 17. He looks you in the eyes, and he's he's got a very strong demeanor about him in the sense that he's very positive, and you get that feeling from him right away. And that's experience of being over in Europe and racing and kind of growing up maybe a little bit faster, Greg.
Yeah. Solid family too. But
100%
being guided in the right direction.
Solid family.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you look at it and you think to yourself, well, Europe's Europe's loss is our gain big time, because I'm happy that we're getting to watch him race, grow. I mean, you look at it and he just turned 17. Depending on what his future holds and what he really wants to ride, he could be on a competitive superbike by 19 if he wants to be. He's making a run at the championship this year. I mean, he's still in the hunt, and I think he's capable of winning races this year. But going into next year, at the end of his 2-year deal with them, with M4, he could be a main championship guy for the season next year. He's going to all these tracks, Greg, having never seen him.
I know,
never seen him.
Yeah,
and he's right there. VIR, he puts it on the podium the second day, and he didn't even get to ride the first day. Didn't even get to race on a 2-day schedule. So the accolades that he has already achieved this year, I think, are only a part of what we're going to see out of him leading into the future.
So I said to him, okay, so you raced in Europe all that time, and you had, Red Bull Rookies Cup, which can be frantic at different parts of the track. So how do you like racing Supersport in MotoAmerica?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm still learning race by race, or even session by session. It's a big change coming from the Moto3 bikes in the Rookies Cup and having to now run with these fast, big machines. So I think overall, up to now, it's been really adapting my style into the 600. But it's been going great. I mean, I think the tracks have also been something that's going not against me, but just something that I've had to adapt a lot to, because the style tracks here in the US are much different, and also just having to get into a weekend with a new track and still learning obviously how to properly ride a super sport bike has been an add-on to me. So it's been a great learning curve for me so far. Road America was obviously a huge step for me. Was also, a better track for me as I adapted to it pretty quickly. So I'm still learning session by session. We're still figuring out things, not only with how I learn or how I adapt, but just in general, my riding style. So really happy with how it's going, really happy with how the team is working. They're fantastic. My crew chief, Jeremy Toy, is also the man. He's been doing great stuff. And also my mechanics, Alex, that can build a fast bike. So I'm very grateful for him too. So it's been going great.
All right, Jay. So first thing to touch on is, since you've had tons of experience overseas, the difference between, say, what U.S. tracks look like and what European tracks look like, and why?
Well, it is it's just different over there, Greg. The European tracks they're very flowy for the majority of them that I've been to, and I've been lucky enough to race a lot of them. There's a flow to them that is a little bit different. When you go to places that are FIM homologated racetracks, they are definitely the runoff's a little bit greater and bigger, and we've really upped our game here in America as far as going to too many tracks anymore that aren't like really truly safe. But we still have a few places out there at some of the tracks that we go to that we would like to see improvements in that. I think that our tracks over here tend to be a little bit bumpier. I don't want to say that they're not taken care of, but we have some pretty harsh winters in some places that we go, as does Europe. I don't know if it's the way they pour the asphalt. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but it's a different feel. And I also feel that a lot of the races that you go to, you have a more people that it can be in that first group. That's the big thing, is that you'll see, you watch the Moto3 races from MotoGP, you and I talk about it all the time. There's 15 or 18 of them slugging at it. Can you imagine growing up in that environment? Like, can you imagine from the time you're 8, 9, 6 years old, you've got 10 or 12 guys to race against every weekend, where it's going to just be, that's going to mature you pretty quickly as a rider. So it is definitely a little different over there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's more accepted, Greg. Maybe that's the best way to put it. It might be just a little bit more accepted.
So, might be, yeah. He also mentioned some stuff to me. Like about stop and go, just like the way the tracks.
Correct.
Like you were talking about the flow. In the States, they're a little bit more stop and go. It's different. Plus, like he's saying, Jay, you go from a Moto3 bike to a super sport bike. That's a huge jump.
Huge step.
It's not horsepower necessarily. Like, it's not just that. It's the way you have to ride the motorcycle. And if you watch the way that Hayden Gillum rides the bike, or you watch the way Bobby Fong, it moves from a Moto3 bike, which let's just say is a Junior Cup bike, tremendous amounts of corner speed, to a super bike where they just get it stopped, get it on the meat of the tire, and drive it out. you see certain corners where the Hayden Gillums, the Bobby Fongs, even SDK are starting to treat that bike like a super bike-ish, meaning that they get in there, they get the thing stood up on the meat of the tire and then drive it out. So it's quite a change in riding style. And it's not like motocross where he could just go to the track and road race the thing and learn lap after lap. Most of his learning is actually at the racetrack during a race event with, like Kyle Wyman said on one of our podcasts earlier, with the clock running, and getting opportunity to ride without the clock going has got to be a tremendous value. But when right now in the middle of the season is he going to be able to do things like that?
It's difficult to do, but I think that you can't sell it short either, that the people he's got around him. I mean, M4 and as long as they've been around, they've over the years, they've spotted a number of talented people, but when they put somebody on that team, they've always got somebody very, very smart that they put with them. And in this case, it's so cool to see Jeremy Toy in our paddock full time right now. Tremendous rider, has a ton of experience, raced AMA for many years. Guy rode in Macau, he rode Isle of Man. He's a tremendous motocrosser, dirt tracker. He's still a kid at heart. If you get a chance to talk to Jeremy, he's really fun guy to speak with, but incredibly knowledgeable. And I think that it wouldn't have worked if you had somebody that didn't have like a Jeremy Toy personality with Sean. Like they managed to put those two guys together, and it's like it seems to be working. It seems to be a perfect match. And then the other guys that Sean mentioned that he's got around him as a crew, it goes a long way for a young rider when you've got guys that you can look at when you're pulling into your pit stall after a 6 or 8 lap run, and they're going to make things better if you give them the right information. It really adds to your confidence. And so I think a lot of credit goes to the team and people as well. And that's going to help Sean tremendously. I mean, just as your, and he's a big kid, Greg, he's a big guy. So I think a 600 is a little easier for him to ride coming from Moto3 than say a kid that isn't as developed as he is. He's a pretty big guy. And he's able to muscle that thing around.
Yeah. Big meaning relative to the 600 class. I mean, he's
correct.
I can't even imagine he's over 160 pounds or whatever, but he's tall and he's, so the thing is, Jay, obviously in 6 races, he's a rookie going from Moto2 to Supersport bikes. He had Daytona to ride, but in the MotoAmerica series, he's got 4 podiums in 6 tries. So I wanted to know if he surprised himself at how well he's done so far this season.
I wouldn't say I surprised myself. I think the main reason is I just really stayed day by day. Obviously we all look a little bit into the future and think of our main goals at the end of the season, but I took this a lot day by day just because, I also didn't know what to expect coming into such a new change for me. It's not only, it's everything that counts. I'm going into a new paddock for me, meeting new people, working with a team that's 100% with me, new bike, new tracks, new competition. I just didn't know what to expect. So I didn't have my eyes set on numbers. I just had myself set on myself really, and just trying to give my best and seeing where it would take me. So I'm definitely happy on how it's been going so far, mostly because I've been quite consistent. I think if it wasn't for VIR race 1 that we had some bad luck and I couldn't start the race, I think we'd be set a little bit better in the championship. But either way, it's been going really well. It's been mostly the consistency that I've been mostly happy about. And I know that, I still have more to give. I still have more to adapt to. But I think from here to the end of the season, there's still 12 races in 6 weekends, but 12 races to do. So obviously my goal is quite big for the end of the year, but I don't think it's anything impossible.
Well, Jason?
Well, we know what his goal is at the end of the year just by that statement. I think he's probably eyeing top 3 or something. My estimation is just listening to what he said there, and he talks about consistency. A consistent rider is a guy that can continuously show to be up at the front and make the least amount of mistakes. And he is that guy right now. Greg, has he had 4 podiums? Am I counting that right? I think he had 1 in Atlanta.
4.
He had 1 in VIR, right? And then 2 at Road America. So when you look at it and you say, are you surprised or I probably for himself, he probably, you associate names with status, don't you? And you look at a Hayden Gillum or a PJ Jacobson, or you go down the list of guys there that are in this class right now. And he knew who they all were just based off of looking at their names and stuff on paper. The fact that he's racing against him, and he's racing at the front. He's not collecting these podiums, is he? He's not just there. He's racing these guys, which is amazing.
And the last two podiums, Jay, at Road America, you combine those two, the third and the second place finish, it's like 1 second. So in two races, he's only been 1 second off the lead. One of them was 0.6, the other 0.3. So he's right there.
And he's led races now like he did at Road America. And I'll be fair, if you took our top 5 in points right now and you did a panel of people and you said, who's going to have the fastest lap of the weekend at Road America? I don't know how many people would have said Sean Dillon Kelly. So when you look at that, he's definitely proven himself. He's done an amazing job so far. It'll be interesting when he gets to go to, like somewhere like Sonoma. I'm not sure if he's seen it or if he's going to get to see it. I don't know that yet. So that's a 2-day weekend. That's going to be probably, I would say, arguably the hardest track, Greg. I don't know. Maybe the hardest on our schedule to learn.
Yep.
So when you think about things in those terms, he's done way more than I could have ever thought anybody at 17 years old could do. That's no knock on him. Obviously, that's just being truthful. He's done a very good job.
No knock. That's a compliment.
Yeah.
But anyway,
100%. Yeah.
And finally, Jason, there was this. All right, listen, Jason Pridmore on this podcast has said that he doesn't remember seeing you ever make a mistake on the racetrack in a race so far. Is that a true statement, or have you made mistakes on the racetrack and we just haven't seen them?
I think the word mistakes is relative. I don't know what a mistake is for Pridmore, but a mistake, sometimes even running a little bit, just a little bit wide for me, I consider it a mistake. But for others, a mistake is crashing. So I definitely haven't made a significant mistake. I did, not in a direct race. I have had some, I guess, dumb moments, I guess you can say, in a race weekend. Even this last weekend, Road America, FP1, lap 2, I went off in Canada corner and I laid the bike down. She didn't get, she only got a little dirty, didn't get scratched at all. I rode her off and did the whole session, didn't even go into pits. But, it's just, I guess I'd consider that a mistake. I was pretty pissed off with myself. But talking directly in race when it's the important time, no, I haven't, I haven't done anything that I told myself, man, I lost the race because I did this mistake on this corner. I haven't seen that yet. So I think that goes a little bit into what we spoke about the consistency. Then I'm happy about this, that this is obviously good for the championship and just for knowing that I can continue in this way for the rest of the season.
This guy would be like a star pupil of yours, wouldn't he?
So you're saying I'm right. But basically, thank you, SDK. I appreciate that. I feel you heard what he said. And if you heard it after you asked the question, there was like because he was trying to be humble. Missing an apex is something that there's no such thing as a perfect race ever. Like literally, I mean, you could ask some guys. It's the old qualifying adage that even though you get pole, you always know you could have gone 0.2 quicker, right? No matter what in our sport, that's how people are. Marc Marquez makes a lot of mistakes in practice and in qualifying, but nobody remembers those when he's on the podium weekend after week, and he's winning championships. And what I'm saying is, this kid isn't 20 years old, 25, 30 years old. This guy's seeing tracks for the first time, and he's running up front with the leaders. And his mistakes, while there might be a missed apex here or there or a run wide, they're not impacting his race results. And at the end of that statement, he said, I can't honestly look back at any of my races and say, oh, I screwed this race up because I did this or because I did that. I remember him getting pushed off the track in Atlanta through no fault of his own, to be honest, just kind of a racing incident. I remember him falling off at VIR and them not being able to get the bike back together, I believe, in time for him to make race 1. So, yeah, there have been mistakes, but when the chips are on the counter and you've got a guy that you can count on like this at 17 years old, his mistakes have been very, very, very minimal in the wide spectrum of a season.
And here's the other thing I'm going to add about this before we move on to the next one. There's always conversation for MotoAmerica fans, us included, about who's the next person to go to Europe. And one of the biggest names has been Cameron Beaubier, JD Beach, partly because they're amazing racers, but also because they've had experience in Europe. And obviously, the age ship has sailed for Beaubier, at least for the moment, in terms of factory equipment and MotoGP, that type of stuff. We have no idea where he might land next season. Could go to World Superbike, could stay here. We don't know. JD Beach, kind of the same boat. But Jay, I know it's early. It's only been 4 race weekends. I understand all that. But here you have a mature young man whose family sacrificed. I mean, all the things that he talked about, like about new tracks and new bike and all that, plus the fact that they had to move back into the States, to the States after being gone for so many years. That's, another thing. I mean, obviously he's born here, so it's not that big of an adjustment, but it's still another adjustment moving back to the U.S. to race. I think that Sean Dillon Kelly, his name has got to start bouncing around people's lips as to who's the next American to go overseas. I don't think that at 17 years old and spending 3 years there, that he's done in Europe. I don't think it's a one and done thing. He did tell me, Jay, that there are plenty of people that he knows. He made a lot of contacts. Obviously, he's a very friendly kid. He's got a good smile. He's intelligent. He speaks Spanish very well. So when he was over in Spain, he's obviously communicating on that level as well. But there's a lot of people that he knows in the racing community in Spain, MotoGP, that have gotten the MotoAmerica Live Plus app, and they've been following the races and following his results because he gets messages from people. One of the greatest things, by the way, if you haven't seen Supersport, that's how you do it. MotoAmerica Live Plus app. You go to MotoAmerica.com, get the app, pay a little bit of money for the rest of the season, and blammo, you have practices, qualify, all the race, all that kind of stuff. And you can get it worldwide. So that's how they've been staying in communication with him. So I know that the paddock that he left still has an eye on him, and that's good for us.
Do you think John Arch has any contacts over there?
Yeah, he's got a few. Yeah.
So, I mean, the thing is that he's put himself in a very good spot. And I agree with you, Greg. When you think of young riders that are coming through our paddock right now, he's definitely the guy, 17 years old, that will probably be most ready in a year or two. A year or two. I don't even know why I'm saying that. I feel like he's ready now. If he had to, if he got the right opportunity, he would be ready now. So going into Utah, Greg, we've got a 5-rider battle for the championship. The next 5 would be Bryce Prince, Josh Hayes, Nick McFadden, Aguilar, and Braden Orr are our top 10. I think Utah is going to be a big weekend for the 600 Supersport class. I believe we could see a new winner there. I got a couple guys that I'm thinking about even when I say that. So we'll see how that goes. And I'm looking forward to it. When we start talking, Greg, about young talent here in America, I don't think that we can leave out one specific person that is really proven to be dominant right now, and that's Rocco Landers in our LiquiMoly Junior Cup. He's won 5 of 6. The one race that he didn't win, it's fair to say, was kind of a weather and race there at VIR. Rocco, he didn't win that race, but he was obviously very fast in the wet. But so far, with the exception of Dallas Daniels, Kevin Almeida, we've seen a couple kids step up to run up there at the front. But Rocco's really shown a lot of poise, a lot of maturity at 14. He is a kid. You get around him and you can't lose that sight that he's still a kid. He's enjoying being at the track. He's loving life. Very energetic, social kid that loves to talk to people. And he'll talk to you about anything from racing to anything. And I think that right now, the kind of dominance that he is showing, I bet there's more than just us talking about Rocco Landers when the doors are closed in any buildings right now, if you're in the MotoAmerica paddock.
Yeah, I think you've got to really look at him. And he's done it in so many different ways already. In only 6 races, Jason, how many different ways has he done it? First race, he completely checked out, right? So he was able to lead from the front in a complete checkout. Race number 1 at VIR, he did it from dead last on the grid. And he worked his way and picked his way through the field and made a move. At Road America, he did it from second place using the draft. So you tell me, how many other ways is there to win? Like, it's not that he's gone out and just checked out, dominated everything, and everybody's going, woo, the rest of the field needs to catch up. He's been challenged, and he's accepted the challenges, and he's made smart moves, and he's done it. So far in only 6 races, I mean, not that it matters, but I'm impressed with Rocco Landers, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and it's hard because you got to give other guys the credit that's due. I mean, Dallas Daniels has really stepped up with the Quarterly Racing on track development team from that first round in Atlanta. Moving forward, I know he's been working hard, testing. He's been doing some dirt track as well. We know he's a very accomplished dirt tracker. Kevin Almeida is another kid, and I just bring those two guys up not to single out the rest of the field, but those two guys have shown that they can at least get up there and run the pace. And really at Road America, from the very first session, I watched the very, very first session, and Rocco was never been there, never seen the place, as some of these kids also had never been there. But when you look at him, it reminds me a lot of SDK that we just had talking as our guest, of a kid that just kind of sorts things out. And that's going to be due to a lot of track time. He's been his dad, Toni, who I've gotten to know pretty well now. They've done a lot with California Superbike School. And so he's got a lot of track time. And at that age, when you can get that kind of track time and be out there riding all the time under the spotlight, it's going to get you better pretty quickly. But you're right, Greg. He's won probably 2 or 3 different ways of doing it now. I don't think coming from the last row was something that he had planned.
No,
but he figured it out, didn't he? He figured it out pretty quickly, and he ran a tremendous first lap, kept himself out of trouble on that first lap, which I thought was key. And then he just started picking guys off. And, right now he's just, I don't know anybody that if Rocco's at the front, I don't know anybody that's really going to outsmart him and beat him right now. You're going to have to really take it to him and do something special because he always just seems to put himself in the right spot at the right time right now.
Yeah, and his feathers don't get ruffled either because Dallas Daniels has raced him up really hard, or the fact that he started from dead last on the grid and worked his way up. It's just like, okay, the kid's just got his eyes forward all the time. So, can he keep it going really is the question, because in the LiquiMoly Junior Cup class, or going back to the KTM Rookies Cup, we've never seen someone dominant for the entire season. And this could be the first time that we see it from Rocco. But if Dallas Daniels has any say-so in the matter, if Kevin Almeida does, Damian Jigaloff has now moved teams. So he's going to be with the Celtic Racing team, HSBK team. I'm not sure what bike he's going to be on, though. I know he's going from a Yamaha, but I don't know what bike he's going to be on.
That's Sam Lockoff, I think,
Oh, sorry, Sam Lockoff. Sorry, not Damian Jigaloff, right? Sam Lockoff. So
Damian rode really good at and you're right. Sam does he do a brand switch? Not sure yet.
Yeah. So, and the reason I say that, is Damian Jigaloff. I had both on my mind because he had good race at Road America, and I know that they've been working on his bike, on the Chicago Natives bike, and getting it faster. So he might be in the mix now. And then Sam Lockoff, who had our first podium, the very first race on that Yamaha, he had done well right out of the box, then a DNF, and then another, points paying position, solid DNF. He's switching teams, Sam Lockoff, the South African. So the question becomes, is this team change for him going to allow him now to all of a sudden appear and start racing up front consistently like he did in race number 1? So there's a lot of questions still to be answered in LiquiMoly Junior Cup. It's a 21-point lead by Rocco, so he almost has an entire race lead. But for sure, with the amount of racing they have left, let's not have the banquet, as they say, right? So
yeah. There's a lot of time left and really it's with so many laps still to be ran. We are just looking at what we have seen so far in this championship, and it's just kind of been about one guy. We've seen the likes of Dominic Doyle and Standish and some of these other kids. I remember Teague Hobbs being up there early in the season. But the one name that continues to just come to the front is Rocco. And, Road America on the Monday, Tuesday after, he was there. And so I spoke to his dad quite a bit, and I spoke to Rocco a lot, but he was out there and just having a blast, Greg. He rode an R6. He come in and he says, "Jason, you're not going to believe what I just rode." I said, "What'd you ride?" He goes, "I rode on an Aprilia RSV 1000. I'm like, "Well, what'd you think?" Probably a pretty big step from a 400 to 1,000 around Road America.
Yeah.
And he just loved it. He's like, "Oh my God, it's my favorite bike." And he just went on and on. And he's having so much fun. And I think that when you're in the position he's in right now, where you're winning races and you're having fun, all these other kids are trying to figure out how to beat him. That's all they're doing. And he's off at the track enjoying himself and having a good time. So this next track, Utah, again, is one where there's not any big, long straightaways. It will be harder to draft a kid like him these other guys are going to have to step up and figure it out, because he will have this place dialed after his first session, and he'll already have started to make a plan of what he is thinking about for the races after 5 laps being out there. That's just how he is wired, and that's how he's thinking.
All right, let's move on to Stock 1000, because they had a couple races at Road America where Jeff May, of, World Superbike fame, obviously Jordan fame, and a bunch of other stuff, won race number 1 by a 100th of a second over Stefano Mesa. And then Mesa ended up winning race number 2 over Andrew Lee. Now I'm looking at the Stock 1000 entry form for the championship of Utah, and I see Jeff May's name on there.
Yep.
I hadn't had a chance to talk to Jeff to see if he's going, but your usual suspects are on there. You have Andrew Lee on that Franklin Armory Graves Kawasaki. He continues to heal, so there's another 10 or 12 days that he's going to get with his finger. For those that don't know, he nearly ground off, what is it, his left? Is it his left
pinky finger? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You have Travis Wyman coming back, and you have Mesa is on the list. Do you know, Jason, because when we talked on our other podcast, I didn't realize that Mesa was actually on a loaner bike.
He was on a loaner bike. He had a problem with his bike at VIR. Shows up at Road America on a loaner bike. I think it's great to see Stefano Mesa leading a championship. We've seen him in the last couple of years, Greg, when they've done the support races. Wera has actually done a couple of rounds with MotoAmerica as a support class, and he was always winning those things. And I think that it can't be said enough to see this kid. He's been around for quite a while, has Stefano Mesa, and to see him leading the championship and doing such a good job and being so consistent. He's always there with mom and dad. But right now he has shown that he could jump on another bike like he did at Road America. And he was really the only one that really took it to Jeff May. I think that when you look at those races, Jeff he won the very first race, like you said. Second race, Stefano was just sitting there kind of pressuring him the whole time. Jeff ended up falling off out of turn 5, a very kind of one of those kind of high-sided him off the inside of the bike, Greg, those little fast ones like that. And Stefano ran off the grass, off the track in the grass. Andrew Lee and Travis Wyman probably had 3 seconds on him with 2.5 laps to go. By the time he got back on track off the grass, and Stefano just went and ran 16.5 on a lap by himself, ran those 2 guys down, and at the end of it, he won by a 10th. It wasn't really that close. He won that race pretty easily. So for him to be leading the points is good. I also have to say that what Andrew has done has been pretty incredible in itself as well, because this guy wasn't even sure that he was going to be able to ride at VIR.
Andrew Lee, the reigning champ you're talking about.
Andrew Lee. He goes there and he gets a 4th, and was like, hey, 2 weeks ago, I wasn't even sure I was going to be here. He's only 7 points out of the lead. Michael Gilbert took a hit to his points with a mechanical on his bike. He's 3rd in the points. Wyman threw away a bunch of points in turn 1 at Road America.
Oh, that was a heartbreaker. Yeah,
it was such a bummer, because he's there and he looked pretty solid, in that he was going to be on the podium, He
was, but he did get pushed wide heading into 1, and he was kind of out, in a place where not many people had gone, and there's a big bump there too, and it just down she went.
And
tough line,
It was bummed to see him, because he's really been flying the BMW flag for that class, and he's a proven race winner. He's led the championship last year, and so that hurt him in the points as well. Corey Alexander finished 3rd in race 2 there. He's not going to be at Utah. I found out this morning Corey won't be making the drive to Utah. He's going to try to do, basically from Laguna Seca on. There was just too much to get done prior to this round. And Rhett Norman, I shouldn't gloss over that. He is 5th right now in the championship. And I saw Vic Fasola. I saw Vic Fasola.
Yeah,
and he's like, Jay,
Vic Fasola.
Vic Fasola. He's been around for so long. I mean, remember him in the Muzzy days. He's like, JP, what am I doing? And now I'm running a team. I'm like, yeah, you're off the deep end now.
He's
sure.
a glutton. He's a glutton for punishment. Yeah,
exactly. But Rhett Norman is running 5th in our championship. So this year, this class, Greg, I think has grown quite a bit. It's definitely more of a class. Yeah, I mean, compared to what we had last year, we were seeing 8-9 entries at some of the tracks. Now we're seeing upwards of 30 people in this class. I'm going to ask you a question. Again, I'm putting you on the spot, but when you look at this class, it's I know kind of what MotoAmerica wants to do with it, But I talked to a number of the riders in this class, and a number of them want to go from this class to Superbike. And I know it's kind of what they wanted to kind of call an entry-level class, but I think when you get some of these guys like the Corey Alexanders and who's a big kid, you get some of these guys going along the line. Andrew Lee as well. He's won championship last year. He's in the hunt this year. They're setting their visions not necessarily on jumping back into 600 Supersport. They want to go forward. Do you think it's a good move for them to move from this class, if they get the funding, to just jump back up into Superbike and maybe increase our grid size there a little?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I'm pulling up some results because I kind of wanted to see, lap times. So, if you look at, say, qualifying practice number 2 on Friday at Road America, in 10th place was Jake Gagne at a 15.1, and then you had a drop off of like Flinders and Vertorico at 218 and 220
in
Superbike.
Yep.
And I look at those front runners in stock 1,000, and 16.5 in the race for Mesa, 17.3, 18.7 for Corey. So I think the way the rules were written is good in terms of stock 1,000 being quite a bit different than Superbike in terms of power, delivery, obviously electronics, available suspension bits, those types of things. So the problem is what would it cost to get you those extra 3 or 4 seconds to be within the top 10 of the EBC Brake Superbike class? And if they can get it together, if Andrew Lee, say, for instance, can continue to court Franklin Armory, who's a non-endemic sponsor, somebody from outside the industry, if they continue to be interested in it, can he get some budget to go? I think it's a good stepping stone because, Jason, I think going from a 600 right into Superbike can be a little bit daunting for some people because it's such a massive step. Not on horsepower necessarily, because that's a big deal, but just on the way the power gets delivered and how you have to ride the motorcycle. So this is a good intermediate step in between those two classes.
Yeah, there's no question. I agree with you 100%. And when you look at the likes of even like a Bradley Ward, first year out, riding with David Anthony under that rig, he's getting to see, David ride Superbike. He's another big kid. I think that the goal for us as a series is to increase our grid in Superbike and getting our manufacturers involved. I think that if they look at who's going fast on these thousands, it could be a nice stepping stone for one or two of these guys to move themselves into Superbike if we get a couple more manufacturers involved. You look at the likes of a Hayden Gillum, who's been around for a long time. He would be a guy that would jump up into Superbike too. I think the paywall that we've done this year is exposed these riders so much more because it's given people a chance to see that the thousands in this class, the rules are obviously a tremendously amount different than they are in Superbike. So when you look at like the top running guys doing 212s and 213s at Road America, at the fastest track that we go to, by the way, and longest track that we go to, I should say, 4 miles long. And you look at the top guys in Superstock only being 4 seconds off. The gap isn't that big, but the money to get that 2 or 3 seconds, Greg, is quite big. So I like the fact that our 1,000 Superstock class is growing. I like the fact too that we're seeing a lot more season entries this year than we've seen in the past. Last year,
I like the different bikes in the class too, Jay.
Agreed.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's Sherwick Min out of Banks, Oregon, is going to be showing up to this one on an Aprilia RS V4000. So good luck to Sherwick on that. I'd love to see that bike make the grid. You got Cowies, BMWs, Suzuki, Miles Thornton, of course, 4th place in race number 2 on the GSXR 1000. So yeah, I'm liking that. I just like to see a variety of manufacturers on the grid,
I agree. And you hit, I totally agree with you on that because we do have that. And what you've also seen is you've seen some of our teams that were in like LiquiMoly and in 600 in the past couple of years. Now they're throwing 1,000 team together, like the Altus Motorsports team with Miles Thornton. You look at something like what he has done is, Miles, another big guy riding a 600 Supersport bike against a bunch of guys that probably are smaller than him. This gives Miles a platform to go to a track and feel like he can be competitive on a bike like the GSXR 1000 and so on. So there's a number of teams that have looked at growing. Team Norris with Michael Gilbert, even you can mention those guys. And what they've done is they've brought, like, over in Europe, Greg, when they were running when they run World Superbike, when they had the 1,000 Superstock class, a lot of World Superbike teams had what they call junior teams that were running 1,000 Superstock. So again, a lot of these guys, I'm hoping that Mesa makes the trip out west for these next 3 rounds. I don't know how many shots Stefano would have in his future of winning a national championship. It's probably one of the few things that is emptied from his resume because he hasn't won kind of our big national championship, a MotoAmerica national championship. He's won a lot of club races and things. So I think moving forward, I'm hoping that we're gonna get to see him anyways. Let's move forward, Greg, on the twins class. Again, another class this year that I feel has grown dramatically from last. We're getting a pretty solid mix of seasoned veterans racing against some kids that we've seen in the LiquiMoly Junior Cup. And I think that the LiquiMoly Junior Cup class, when you get bumped up out of that class or you win the championship and you move forward, we've got some guys, and you could take Alex Dumas as an example this year. He's so young, like he's a very young 16 years old. And you look at where Alex is and you look at where Sean Dillon Kelly is. The 3 years that Sean spent over in Europe really matured him as a rider. Alex has been doing the KTM 390 Cup. The twins class, again, M4 Suzuki steps up. They want to join in another class. They build SV650s for Alex and Joe Blasius. I think it's a neat move for the LiquiMoly kids to jump from that class up to this twins class. And again, we're seeing way more entries than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and you said it in terms of growth of the class. And to me, what you were saying was not just how many people are entered the class, because it's great that we see that many entries, but the growth of the class to me is how the paddock is utilizing the rules set forth by MotoAmerica, saying, okay, here we have a kid, Alex Dumas, who's forced out of the LiquiMoly Junior Cup class because he wins the championship, but he's still very young, doesn't have much experience on a 600 couple track days. What do we do with this kid? Because we want him on our team, and he's on the Road Racing World Young Guns team. So what do? They look across and they say, oh, wait a second, Twins Cup. We can put a Suzuki SV650 in it as a Suzuki team. It's kind of an intermediate step. It's more speed. It's going to be closer to what a 600 horsepower is going to be versus. I love it. I love that the way that this paddock innovates isn't just, always inside the motorcycle. It's looking at saying, okay, what do we have? Because I think honestly, last year, Jason, Twins Cup for us was kind of like, oh yeah, they're running Twins Cup. Great. What's this?
Correct.
They're bringing 2004 SVs in. Somebody brought a Yamaha in. Great. And a guy that we love a lot, Chris Parrish, who's been around racing a long time, wins the championship. Now what? And so over that course of last season, the teams looked at it and said, all right, I got it. Let's go ahead and do it. Let's use it. And now you have like Quarterly Racing has Michael Barnes in it.
Yes.
On a Ducati and, Riders Law is in the mix. And you have these other teams that are really populating this class and they're traveling with this series. It's not just regional people. Say we go to the Southeast region, it's very strong. And all of a sudden, yes, we do have more entries than some other places, but it's not just that. You're looking at people that are committed to the entire season. And, the amount of entries here in Utah is great. I mean, I thought it would be a lot less, but you still have a lot of the people that we saw at Road America going to race at the Championship of Utah as well. And so I like the class. It's fun to watch. Obviously, that race from Road America, Drake Beecham won by 0.3 of a second over Dumas and another 0.3 over Michael Barnes and another 0.4 of a second over Chris Turner. I mean, with Chris Turner, setting a ridiculously too fast 2:29.7. It was a lot of fun to watch that race.
It really was. No, it was. And you're right, Greg. Again, we're seeing a lot of we're seeing teams morph into other classes that are already established MotoAmerica teams. And that's what they've done. Drake Beecham, talking about him and who he is and where he's been. He's been in the LiquiMoly class. He's struggled. He's done. We've seen him up at the front. We've seen him fall. We've seen him do well. But this class, I don't know what Drake had left in the tank as far as moving forward and going on. But he ends up getting on one of these twins with AP Motorsports. And at the first 3 rounds already, he's done a really good job. And I think when you look at him winning, he did everything he needed to do. He managed that race really, really well at Road America, and he's been very consistent throughout the season already. He's third in the points. He's only 5 points out of the lead, and for him to get his first Moto America win, you could see how much it meant to him. But he rode really flawless. I mean, he rode really well. There was nothing that he did in that race that was going to take him out of that lead group or take him out of that lead contention. There were 6 guys at one time, maybe even as many as 7 up in that lead group. Michael Barnes, riding for Quarterly Racing again. He was a guy that dominated in Atlanta and then had a motor problem or had a problem at VIR. He comes back with a solid podium, so he's second in the points. But they're all chasing Chris Parrish, who didn't have the best race at Road America. At Road America there, Chris, I think he ended up 8th, Greg. And I think by his kind of what he has shown, he's been up at the front winning these races. So he probably wasn't that happy, but he's sitting there on top of the points. And I think it really goes to show that last year, maybe there was some underrating going on about how hard these guys are riding. Because you and I don't call this class. Let's just make that clear. A lot of times when we get done doing the races that we're doing, you're down in the paddock getting stories on the 3 classes that we have to cover for TV. I'm usually out at a fence watching or debriefing some riders and things like that. So, but this year we're both paying a lot of attention to this Twins Club class, and it's great to see Chris Parrish leading the championship still.
Couple notes heading into Utah for Twins. Danielle Diaz on a Kawasaki Ninja 650 has signed up to race this one. Michael Barnes will be at this race, at least, from the sign up. Interesting, Jason. You have a gentleman by the name of Stephen Shakespeare out of Great Britain. He's on the AGV Sport Monkey Moto team. So that's, a team that's been around there back in the paddock. He's actually registered to race a Yamaha R1 in stock 1000 and a Ducati Monster 797 in twins.
Nice.
Yeah, I like that. Get out there and get some laps, bro.
Yeah. Double track time. I mean, it sounds so funny now because you and I talk about this aside and we're always laughing because back in the day, it was like, if you didn't race 2 classes, people would go, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you out there in 2 classes? It was either 600 and Superbike or it was 600 and 750 or it was whatever it was. And so, yeah, when you see these guys entering 2 classes, it's great. And I think on a weekend like this, a 2-day weekend, yeah, you got to be fit. That's the big thing is you got to be fit for it. But it's a 2-day weekend. And if you've never been to the track, getting those extra laps definitely doesn't hurt you. And if you can be competitive in both, why not do it? And we've seen Danielle Diaz in the past, and she usually likes to do the West Coast. I believe, Greg, she put it on the podium last year. I think it was either here at Utah or she battled for the podium all the way. But I know she was on, or maybe it was at Laguna she battled for the podium, but I think she was on the podium somewhere last year. So, I know Derek Keys really well, and Derek, kind of takes care of her stuff as well as Andrew Lee's. So I know Derek was with her at a racetrack. Maybe it was Buttonwillow a couple of weeks ago. So good to see her back out there. And so basically we're going to have 3 ladies now over the course of the weekend with Jamie Astudillo and the LiquiMoly and Caroline Olsen in the 600 Supersport. So,
and I think think this track we're going to, this, obviously new for us configured track, should lend itself to some good racing in Twins Cup.
Yeah, I agree. I think all the way across the board, for our 5th round, is it, Greg? I guess it is now.
Yeah,
5th
round already.
It just goes by so quickly. But
I'm gonna miss you.
But no, I think it's gonna be great. I'm looking forward to getting Utah. When you getting there?
I'm actually not getting there till Friday morning, and then we have, because it's a 2-day event, and then we have some TV stuff to do, 6 or 7 o'clock at night on Friday, and then we get right into it. It's going to be a fast, furious, frantic weekend for us.
Where does it rate to you? When we used to run the perimeter course, where did it rate with you on the schedule as far as like favorite tracks? I know you've raced there a few times. I know you had an accident there as well, but like, where did it rate for you? Did you really rate Utah?
Not like most people, but that's on me because, obviously, I mean, I've never really been seriously hurt on a motorcycle till I was in Utah. And then it was, down, punctured lung collapse, life flight helicopter to the hospital. You know what I mean? Blah, 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 blah. My only time. I love the area. One of my archery
the only time
sponsors,
you raced there was when you got hurt, was it?
It was the only time. I didn't even, I've ridden the track a few times, but that was the only time I was supposed to race. Never got to race. That was in practice.
Got it. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I love it. I I love
you
the
and
area.
Most people love it. You and most people, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think I remember we tested there the first year that we were racing. I remember when we went and tested there, and I had a pretty big breakthrough about something that we were working on with a motorcycle. And so I actually remember falling off there in the test and never being so happy to fall. I was like, wow, that's amazing.
Because you had nothing to hit, nothing to stop.
Not just that. It's the funny thing about Utah back in the day, and it's probably still like this, is that when you fell, it looked like you just came off the moon because the dirt around the tracks was so fine that it would just turn everything white. But I really rate the place. I think it's a lot of fun. I think a lot of riders really like it. And I don't think really going to this East Course, hopefully it's not going to hurt too many people's feelings. I know turns 1, 2, 3 there on the perimeter course are some of the best that we run in the country. But and
by the way, Jason, if you're a spectator, it's going to be better because you have more of the track closer to you because of where the viewing areas are too. So that's going to be great.
You're going to be able to see it. And there's a couple big places, because I've already thought about that. There's a couple of big grandstands that depending on, I'd be curious to know, because they had a motocross national there 3 years ago, and they never really got rid of that dirt in the infield. So it'll be interesting to see if any of that's gone, because then it will really expose the viewing. You'll be able to see a lot more. You could probably see the whole racetrack from one place in a couple of the grandstands there. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to getting down there and seeing you there.
All right. So Utah this weekend, and of course, you can see us there and the opportunity to see MotoAmerica in action. WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca, July 14th weekend. August 11th is Sonoma Raceway. August 25th is going to be... We're going to head east to Pitt Race, just outside of Pittsburgh. September 8th is New Jersey Motorsports Park, about an hour outside of Philly. We don't want to talk about that. My last experience there was absolutely horrendous. And finally, we wrap things up at Barber Motorsports Park, September 22nd in Birmingham, Alabama. And by the way, tell everyone, you can catch a 1.5-hour Superbike show on FS2, which is Fox Sports 2. Other races, practices, qualifyings, tons of other content are on the MotoAmerica Live Plus app. So you make sure you want to go download the Live Plus app. Tell everybody about it. Check out NBCSN show. It's called Inside MotoAmerica. Very cool behind-the-scenes show hosted by our rock star, Miss Hannah Lopa. And please make sure you share the podcast with all of your racing friends. And don't forget, at every event, Jason Pridmore walks around with a brand new Sharpie, hoping to take the cap off someday so someone can ask him for an autograph.
Yeah. You know what the problem with that is the ink dries. I get brand new pens, they're pointy and all that, and they just dry out. So, but yeah, thanks for that, Greg. That's really nice of you to, I got a Sharpie sponsor. That's what it is.
That's what it is. Oh, one last announcement, by the way. Jason and I are very happy that this is going to happen. When we get to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca in a few weeks' time, this podcast, which is the podcast that we do before MotoAmerica races, is actually going to be done Friday, 4:30 local time, I think is the time we're talking about. And we're going to do it live on the MotoAmerica Live Plus app with video. So that means Jason is going to have to shave or do something with that heat miser hair of his.
Dude, I have got no hate, and I'm gonna get it now. But my hair was I tried so hard to get a haircut before I went, and look, I'm just throwing myself out there now for people to just bash continuously. But it looked like something. My hair looked like Ace Ventura. It was horrible. I apologize to everybody.
It did.
Not only did you have to look at my face, but you had to look at my hair too. So I look like Bill Murray out of Kingpin. Remember Kingpin? It was horrible. Yeah.
Here's the good news. When we're in the booth, think of it like me driving a car. I'm in the driver's seat, and all I do is stare out the window. I never look at the passenger and talk to the passenger. So I get to spend hours next to him and never have to see his face because I'm locked on the TV. Is that not true? Is that not true?
It's pretty true.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us on our podcast. Do you want to say something on the way out, JP?
See y'all in Utah. Look forward to it. Later.